Coogs House. The Houston Cougars officially start the Willie Fritz era this weekend, but there's a couple things they've got to do if they want to start off on the right foot.
You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Coogs, daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. And whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who can't step by, thank you for making Locked On Coogs your first listen of the day. If you want to join the conversation but don't know what to say, tell us in the morning when you get ready to go to work to put on your socks first or your pants first, because the Houston Cougars need to put on both to go to work this week. And today's show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Running a few of those right now myself. More on that later. Love the stuff over at 5 Hour Energy, though. We got a bunch of stuff to talk about. I do want to eventually get into like the legacy of this game, because I think it is the kind of game that there's a very good chance we're all thinking back on for a long, long time. I want to talk about what the offense has to do, because I think at this point in the show, if you're a long-time listener, you know, but if not, welcome to the club. Hit subscribe in every day. And I'm an offensive guy. But first and foremost, I want to talk about how the defense can win this football game for the Houston Cougars. I want to start off by talking about like what UNLV does in offense that is so weird and different, and kind of how Houston can be prepared for that. Now, UNLV offense coordinator is a guy named Brendan Marion. Brendan Marion has been, frankly, kind of well regarded in coaching circles for several years now. He's run this go-go style offense at Howard, William and Mary, and did some position coaching at some bigger schools, including like UT Austin, so the Power 5 kind of schools at the time. OC at UNLV gets to do his own thing. He's back to the go-go. And this offense is odd. It's predicated on things like unbalanced sets, weird formations, catching you off balance. They only run a handful of real plays out of it, or at least they did last year. But it's high tempo, it's high speed, it's simple reads. If you do this, we do that. If you do that, we do this kind of stuff. Very option based. Now, Brendan Marion's background is he played for Gus Malzahn once upon a time at Tulsa. And so like you got to think about like that's kind of where some of that background comes into play. He also has spent a lot of time coaching at the high school level, and not because I was a high school assistant offensive coach for 9 years. I would point out that high school coaches typically are very creative, because you're always trying to cover up talent differences between you and the team. Whereas like a pro coach is like, no, we all have salary caps. We all have pros, right? You got to trust guys do their jobs. Like, no, I got a kid that's focused on algebra, and you got a kid that's going to be a D1 athlete. I got to find a way to make this work, right? Like those are the kinds of discrepancies we're seeing at the high school level. Marion brings a kind of creativity to this. He'll do things like 2 running backs on the same side of a spread formation. They'll pretty much always have at least 1 running back, at least 1 H-back, and 1 kind of guy that can do either. They'll have a couple of receivers out there as well. Sometimes the H-back will split out like a slot type of spot. And I think in looking at this, it's important to see like the mismatches they're trying to create. They'll also go unbalanced line. They'll also put 2 receivers on line scrimmage on the same side of the field and mess with who's eligible and ineligible. Again, trying to do things so fast that the defense miscounts or misaligns or doesn't quite see, oh, there's no receiver on the other side of the field. This is not just a normal twin set or whatever, right? And that's going to be important. The focus, the attention to detail, the kind of things that we actually trust Willie Fritz to instill in this program in the long term are going to be really important immediately on the defense side of the football. For the video audience, I'm going to put a couple just quick sketches of plays on the screen. I'm going to try to describe them for the audio audience. Obviously, you're going to be watching the game visually on Saturday, and that's the way some of this goes. One of the things they do a lot is this idea of like a triple option with the RPO off of it, right? So you see the 2 running backs, both the quarterback's right, an H-back to the quarterback's left, just behind the heels of the left tackle, and set off to the little bit outside the tackle box. And they're going to essentially run a zone left with the first running back and be reading that backside end, the same kind of zone read we've seen everyone run, commonplace in college football and the shotgun stuff for the better part of 25 years. The interesting thing they do with the H-back in this instance is they run what's called a split zone look, where he comes across the formation to then go block outside, but he still doesn't block the defensive end. They're still reading that guy. He actually goes up and blocks either a safety or an overhang type of player, depending on who the next read is, because then the quarterback is out into a speed option look with the second running back reading off of one of the two players, depending on alignment. They also at some points will do this and then set up to throw a deep bomb to the outside receiver who has stalk blocked and stalk blocked and stalk blocked and then releases, right? In a fairly similar vein, you'll see them do something with this where they'll, slightly line a little different and crack back with the outside receiver and then run this on a corner. So they'll kind of do things to make sure they find the weakest links of the defense. With so many new faces on Houston's defense, I don't know how you would know that necessarily coming into this game, but they're going to try and find a weak point, target that weak point, and make reads off of them. They'll also set up in the same kind of formation and maybe run an outside zone to the left kind of look where the H-back, instead of crossing the line of scrimmage now, is staying on the same side he lines up on to block. And they'll run the dive option read or the zone read option with the first running back, and then have options to make pass reads off the backside if the run is not there, with a one-on-one kind of read with the corner, the outside receiver go outside and a fade ball or a nice little quick post, those kinds of things. All kinds of options in this kind of stuff that just look a little bit different and kind of get you a little bit twisted and convoluted. I also want to draw up them running mesh. Mesh is one of the most common concepts of college football. We talked about it at one point in the past in the show because it was a thing Dana was kind of at the responsible forefront of, right? It's a very common concept in the air raid, as it's like kind of a run play almost in the air raid, right? And the way they did it at UNLV last year was commonly with a running back either staying into block or running a wheel route to one side, the other running back always running a wheel route to his same side, right? And then the receivers would cross like a typical mesh, and then the H-back would kind of function like a tight end. Now, they occasionally do something trickier where they'd run like a fake mesh where both the receivers would kind of get to the midpoint and then burst back out for arrow kind of routes or what have you. But the base of this mesh, it still comes out of the same weird go-go formation. They can also do fun stuff out of it, like flood pass concepts where they fake the initial zone read and then come back out to, the H-back, instead of doing a split zone block, will fade up to a wheel route. One running back might run a, hitch route to the middle of the field. Flood concepts galore, right? Like all kinds of different things out of this offense. And it's all predicated on being weird and different. It's not quite weird and different either, like when Houston would play Navy every year and they'd run the triple option, right? Because there are rules to the triple option. You might only see it once a year, but it's not like a new inventive offense. This is more akin to like lining up to play Houston and Case Keenum and the late aughts. Not because they're necessarily as explosive. I don't mean to say that whichever quarterback they end up starting of their multiple ones are Case Keenum, but it's as creative an offense as the air raid was at that time. It really is exploiting some mismatches and differences in a way that frankly had me jotting down notes all week while I was watching some UNLV tape from last year. Like, oh, this is fun. This is interesting. This is different, right? Constantly using H-backs in run game and pass game, constantly having two running backs on the same side. And then it really ends up turning out to where, as far as like elusive speed goes, you only have to have one burner of a wideout. And they have that in Ricky White. And I've said all week, I'll say it again, they've got a pro NFL caliber wide receiver. I mean, like a first, second, third round pick, an early round pick kind of NFL wide receiver talent. And I don't want to, I mean, we can talk about if you have two quarterbacks, do you have any? We can talk about discrepancies on Houston's line versus the UNLV line. Talk about running backs, running game. This dude, Ricky White, is a pro, right? And you really in this offense only have to have one fast wide receiver. Now, we heard from people at UNLV this week they have a couple. The De Jesus guy is apparently fairly quick as well. They pulled in a guy that was made some plays at UT Austin. He's transferred to UNLV to get a bigger role. So I think they've got talent out there besides Ricky White, but Ricky White is the one receiver that you have to keep an eye on. And they have all these option things with him in these kinds of fun, mismatchy kind of things that really make, Latrell McCutcheon is the guy that I imagine gets the call here. It makes him stay on his toes. Now, I want to keep talking about how this offense may play into Houston's defense and actually into Houston's offense in a second. But first, summer's over. Fun is over. Time to get back in shape. Time to get rid of this dad bod. I've been a dad for 14 months now. It's time to probably get back in shape. The best place to do that is Factor Meals. Trust me, this one, you can meet your wellness goals thanks to a menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you always find time to enjoy these nutritious, great tasting meals. You can make today the day that you kickstart that new healthy routine. I need to say discipline and stuck to one of those, but I keep trying to restart and keep using Factory Restart because it's the best place to restart that with 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week. You always have new flavors to explore. You can treat yourself to restaurant quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. The salmon's pretty good. Salmon's pretty good. Enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. At factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next box. That's code lockedoncollege50 at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50. 50% off your first box, 20% off your next month while your subscription is still active. All right, Houston's also using the Willie Fritz era trying to build a championship caliber program, looking to win a Big 12 championship in the near future. And if you're going to do that, you need passion, drive, and patience. Those are the same things that also keep your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether in speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. Over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. Always find exactly what you're looking for, and with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. All the parts you need, the price you want, is easy to make car the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride alive at ebaymotors.com. Electronics only. Excellent supply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. So this go-go offense can require a lot of discipline. It's going to require a lot of focus. But I will also say, because of the speed it runs with, if you are disciplined and focused and keep eyes on the prize, read your keys, etc., you might only have to be on the field for a few seconds off of the game clock. It functions very, very quickly, which is great until they go 3 and out, until they get, a 4-play drive, until they don't succeed. And frankly, then it's so fast that your defense gets to continue resting. Your defense gets to stay fresh. It's not that long a series, right? They go so fast that can actually help Houston's defense in a way that I think that, frankly, Willie Fritz and the conditioning they're doing, Kurt Hester and so on, would be beneficial to. The other part of this is, in flipping the side of the football around a little bit and going over to Houston's offense could actually be a big beneficiary to what the go-go offense is doing, because if those drives are short because Houston's doing their job defensively, Houston's offense gets to trot back out there against a defense that can't, get a break. They're off the field for a very short amount of time. And with what we think Houston's offense will look like based on the spring game, clips from practice, what Barbay's done in the past, where the strength of the roster is, this is a roster built to wear down whatever is in front of them, right? It's going to be a heavier focus on the run game this year, I promise. Parker Jenkins, Sean Sanford, Stacey Sneed, buy stock now, right? If you haven't already, buy stock now. And in this game in particular, it behooves Houston to really try and grind out, not only because the weather might be bad and it might be raining, but really try and grind out these longer drives, take a lot of time off the clock, keep the defense keep the UNLV defense on the field, because over the course of the game, especially with some Houston humidity, that's going to become a factor, right? UNLV, in games they lose, has several drives throughout the second half that are just short. And that means the defense has to play potentially long series, quick break, potentially long series. And that's when mistakes happen, right? That's when some guys a half a step slow to a run fit and Parker Jenkins busts one for 15 instead of 4, right? That's when a guy, misplants in coverage because he's just like a little bit tired, takes that misstep, and then suddenly Joseph Manjack is behind the defense, right? Those kinds of things happen with mistakes made from exhaustion, right? I'm confident Houston's in good enough shape to play this game, and I guess that hadn't maybe always been the case. So Houston played a lot of half of football games last year. That is not going to be a problem this year. It's been such a clear focus, right? But I do think that in this particular matchup, just based on styles make fights and the styles of this fight, that UNLV is based on, well, they're going to try and score quickly, but if you can keep them scoring, they're still going to be off the field quickly, right? And so Houston running the ball, Houston grinding things down, using Donovan Smith's legs, using the entire play clock. Let them bake in the Houston heat for a little bit, unless it's raining, I guess, and let them soak in the rain, right? You can use those kind of things to your advantage. Use the crowd noise to your advantage, right? All of these things should factor in to be a big part of Houston's game plan. And then they also will be using bigger bodies. I think technically we saw on the depth chart the other day that Jaden York is the starting tight end, Malik Carr is the backup tight end. But as we talked about for about 3 or 4 months now, they're going to have a lot of sets where both tight ends are on the field, right? A lot of what you call 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends on the field at the same time, doing all kinds of different things. That's bigger bodies, that's leaning on guys, that's pushing guys around, right? Those kinds of things, again, can continue to wear down this UNLV defense. In fact, in talking this week with UNLV folks, and you heard some of this conversation earlier in the week on Locked On Coogs. If you didn't, go back and check it out. We talked to a couple people that cover UNLV, a couple people that cover U of H, and we're kind of like putting things together here to get to this point. But it does look like in the games UNLV has lost, right, they're high-scoring games, right? And both folks I talked to this week kind of think that unless there's like first game jitters and rust, this ought to be stylistically a high-scoring game. Well, if that's the case, I guess my prediction has been 35-28 Houston for a while now, and more on that later. But if that's the case, right, Houston's defense, right, may be able to help themselves out with the, get a 3 and out here, whatever, et cetera. And then let Houston's offense have long drives, and where this, I'm about to say UCF because that game just wrapped up. UCF's running game looks really good, and really wrap up this UNLV game in a good kind of way. Now, that's not to say that we can't expect the Boogie Johnson deep threat touchdown. That's not to say that Mekhi Muse may not break something open in the return game. That's not to say that there's not Donovan Smith's arm strength could, let loose and go over the top to any of those guys. And just in predicting the kind of, honestly, inside zones, counters, those kinds of run plays, some power to that Barbade runs and has run at his previous stops. The style of this offense, when you look at the guys up front, frankly, this is one of the few games this year where Houston's not going to be, in a roster sense, mismatched across the board. Like, I think Tank Jenkins and Pancake Hunter will be as good as anyone they match up against across all season long, right? But in this particular game, I feel comfortable that all 5 guys in Houston's offensive line are not mismatched in terms of size at any point across the UNLV defensive front, right? I feel comfortable that all of Houston's defensive linemen, trench guys, the dogs, etc., have a size advantage, at least as much as the defense could hope for in this matchup as well, right? That trench stuff, leaning on each other, big guys pushing each other around is going to be important as this game goes on. Again, we're thinking here that Houston's offense, with the long drives, sustaining drives, not shooting themselves in the foot with penalties. Willie Fritz has been saying for the entirety of the offseason, Coogs don't beat the Coogs, right? Doing those kinds of things over and over again and getting 3-4 yards at a time. It's not sexy, but doing it over and over and over again will wear out this defense. And I'm telling you, the defense can get you the ball back. That second drive, that third drive, that fourth drive, those 3, 4, 5s are going to turn to 7, 8s, 9s, 12s, 15s, right? Those things just happen in football. It's natural. And I think that's how this game goes. It's going to be close at halftime. And again, I'm only predicting 35-28. Could even see, honestly, UNLV with a second half lead at some point, 28-21 or something. And then Houston gets the ball and gets a couple scores in. I just feel confident that Houston's got the size, the strength, the run game, the good mojo, et cetera, to win this football game. I want to talk a second about what that could do for the legacy of this program and the Willie Frtz era. But first, we're talking about energy. We're talking about running the ball. We're talking about having things that get you going. I also talk every episode about being a teacher, a coach, and talking to you on a podcast every single day. And when you hit that wall, that after lunch wall, or that didn't get a whole lot of sleep last night wall, or whatever the case may be, and you need to push through it, get over it, get around it, get on to the next thing, 5 Hour Energy is they're the people you got to talk to, because the zero sugar and its convenient portable size, it's the perfect pick me up for getting stuff done. 5 Hour Energy has a bunch of different flavors: watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry. I'm a big grape guy myself. My grapes, my grape 5 Hour Energy is my go-to. I just got a box this week, actually, another box this week. Grape is great. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, the number 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy product today, use our promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid through September 30th and cannot be used on subscriptions or promotions. Code is good through the end of September. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. All right, so I think this is the kind of game where you're going to potentially remember it for a long, long time. And I don't mean to put pressure on anyone that isn't already there. I think there's a lot of pressure probably already on everyone involved in this football game on Saturday. But I do think that there's a legacy aspect to this game. For starters, Houston and Houston fans were itching to get to this point. I mean, the foaming at the mouth to get rid of the last head football coach was visible, right? And then you get to this point where there was, frankly, multiple camps when, at least amongst the fan base, when they're looking for a new head football coach. And I maintain I think they got the right guy. I don't mean to say that there aren't people that, didn't think that or whatever. I think they got the right guy in this situation. My whole thing was, how long-term is he going to be? But for the present tense, he's a great football coach that can turn this thing around, right? So in building a legacy, right, frankly, this weekend, playing UNLV as a group of 5 school, there will be people that see this as an easy win. It is not. I will stress over and over again, UNLV is a very talented football team with a very good coaching staff. And for what it's worth, a group of 5 team will make the college football playoff by rule, and UNLV absolutely thinks they can be that group of 5 team, right? By rule, the highest ranked group of 5 team automatically makes the 12-team playoff. UNLV absolutely believes they can be that team, and I don't think they're that crazy. Houston beating them in week 1 would kind of hurt them in that instance, but I'm telling you, they really feel strongly that they're going to be that team. And they're really good, right? Now, Houston plays UNLV, and it started the Willie Frtz era, and kind of whatever happened in the Willie Frtz era. And I think good things are going to happen in the Willie Frtz era. I think this is going to be a great 5-year run. We'll see how long it goes after that. But I think this thing's going to turn around pretty quickly. I've said before, this is the get the right people on the bus kind of year. Next year, it's get them in the right seats. The year after that, it's now we're moving forward. I think that 3rd and 4th year of this rebuild is going to be really, really strong once you kind of get the motion, get the culture set, and all that kind of stuff. Think about how long it took Sampson, right, on the basketball side of things. I think that that's how this is going to go. But if this is a game that Houston doesn't look great in, right, the questions will start, whether it's fair or unfair. And I don't mean to say that like we're going to come on the show and question it, but there was a group of the fan base that didn't want this. They wanted something else, right? And then, frankly, when you add the fact that this is not going to be the sexy, high-scoring, scoring 50 points a game kind of football, well, okay, then there are also going to be people like, well, we can only put up, however many points on UNLV. There's going to be that as well. On the inverse, if and when they win this game, however the next 4 years after this year goes, right? There was a moment where the program was undefeated. And I know that that's like, I don't know, childish to think about or whatever, but like that is a hopeful moment, right? And for what it's worth, I think they can look good in a loss and have people feeling good about things. I think they can look bad in a win and have people not feeling good about things. Right? I remember Houston beat UTSA last year, but we didn't feel great about it afterwards, right? 17-14. Not the biggest opener to a Big 12 season you would have expected, right? But the legacy in this one, Fritz in this one, right? Winning this game and looking good while doing it especially really does validate a lot of the different culture changes we continue to hear about, right? At some point, fans have complained about a lot of different things in this program. The coaching here, the players there, right? The administration over there. Well, they got a new coach. They got a new AD. They have the second most transfers back and forth, 50 whatever players it is of anyone in Division I FBS college football. Right? I mean, they've fixed those things. They're swapping those things out, right? And at some point, it's okay. We complain about all these things, and now they fixed them. Now we need to see them work, right? And it's the legacy that could carry on from this weekend. Fritiz miss the Frtiz era, a big Willie style, whatever we want to call it as it goes on, right? This is our first chance to see him on the field in Cougar red and white with someone else across the field from him besides his own staff, like the spring game, right? And frankly, the last couple of times he's been to TDECU Stadium, he looked pretty good. I mean, I brought it up earlier this week, and I think upset listener Rusty. Rusty's a great listener. He's here every day. I think upset Rusty about bringing up the fact that when he brought in Tulane to TDCU 2 years ago, they won with a third string quarterback, right? I'm not saying that they have to like be that kind of impressive. That was 7-8 years into a rebuild that I didn't think was possible. I didn't think Tulane was ever going to be good at football, right? But I will say that I do think there will be something to hold on to. There will be a drive, a run, a stop, a gutsy call, right? Something that we look back on in 3, 4, 5 years, and it's like, that thing, that play, run, stop, gutsy call, that's the thing that lasted, right? That's the thing that we continue to see examples of over and over and over as long as this goes, right? And it's going to happen this weekend. I can't tell you which it's going to happen. I had a great high school football coach as a player. When I was a player, everyone played high school football, so I don't mean something special or whatever, but he always said that 6 plays determine the outcome of every football game. Every football game you pick, every football game you watch, you could pick out of the game afterwards 6 different plays that decided the football game. They might be the first 6 plays where someone got hit in the mouth and never got up. They might be the last 6 plays where someone showed up clutch. They could be sprinkled out in any form or fashion throughout it. There's 6 plays that decide a football game. And then you follow that up by saying, I can't tell you before the play happens whether or not that's going to be one of those 6. So you need to play every play like it's going to be one of those 6, right? And truthfully, that was good coach talk. Got everyone amped. It was focus on this play. This never know when play is going to be that kind of important, right? But I would extrapolate that in wrapping up here to say that there will be plays from this first game of Willie Fritz's career at Houston, his first season at Houston, there will be plays from this game and season that define the entire Fritz era. I can't tell you which plays they will be. I frankly can't even necessarily tell you what other games they will happen. But unlike Coach Kirk's example once upon a time, I feel pretty confident that this is going to be one of those games. Just because it's the first one. It's the first impression. You don't get a second one of those, right? And I'm excited about it. I'll be here to talk to you about it afterwards. Follow me on X at Painsworth512, and we can break down, hopefully you've been in a very happy, good mood, what goes on in the game after the fact. I mentioned the day that Michael Connor's also going to be doing it with Locked On Houston Sports. A bunch of different post-game options. Please tune into all of them, but come here. Trust me, we'll be talking about it very, very quickly after the game wraps up. But man, I just, it's weird to be stepping into a moment that you know is about to be very, very important. It's a cool feeling, actually. It's a cool feeling to like, this Saturday is a game that we're going to be reflecting on for a long time. And we're breaking it down here at Locked On Coogs. Make sure to subscribe to the bell so you know we're live Saturday night after the game is over. Thank you for making us your first listen. For a second listen, Locked On Big 12 is breaking down football games. We're no longer in off-season mode at Locked On Big 12. There are football games to talk about, and Drake is talking about them in the conference. Go check out that. Now, Drake's on my bad side right now. He's not very high on the Houston Cougars this year. So go watch the show, and whenever he mentions it, comment and tell him he's wrong. Locked On Coogs is a primary Locked On podcast. It's your team, our Houston Cougars, every day. Go Cougs.